Hey guys, tonight we are heading out onto the biggest, bluest, most intimidating empty expanse on this planet, the Pacific Ocean. We're going to leave the world you know behind, not on a cruise ship with a buffet and a swimming pool, but on a vessel that's both a marvel of engineering and a testament to human courage, a Polynesian voyaging canoe. And let's be honest, your chances of surviving this trip, let alone finding our destination, are let's just say you shouldn't get too attached to your current life. The journey itself is the first great filter. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to see where you're listening from tonight. Drop your city and the time in the comments below. It's always cool to see our little community scattered across the globe, all tuning in together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background tone, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Feel that gentle, rhythmic rocking. That's not your bed. You're on the water now, somewhere in the heart of Polynesia, maybe 1,000 years ago. The air is thick with salt and the unknown. You're a part of a small group, maybe a few dozen people, who have packed their entire world onto two long, wooden hulls lashed together with what seems like miles of coconut fiber rope. This is your home now, a double-hulled canoe, a floating island moving through an endless blue desert. Above you, the sail, woven from pandanus leaves, makes a soft, papery rustle as it catches the trade winds. The wooden frame of the canoe groans and creaks, not like it's breaking, but like it's breathing with the ocean. This vessel is alive, an extension of the forest it came from. You look around at your fellow travelers. Some are grimly determined, their eyes fixed on the horizon. Children are huddled under a small, thatched shelter on the central platform. Their game's quieter now than when you first set sail weeks ago. And then there's the leader. Legend will one day call him Ho-to-Machar, the great parent, the first king. Right now, he is just a man with an immense burden, guiding his people away from their ancestral home towards a promise, a whisper of a new land passed down through oral tradition. Why did you leave? That's a question historians and archaeologists are still debating to this day. Was it a brutal war that your tribe lost, forcing you into exile? Was your home island becoming too crowded, the resources dwindling? Or was it something simpler, something more profound? A pure, unquenchable thirst for exploration, the same spirit that drives people to climb the highest mountains or look to the stars. You look at the endless expanse of water, and you know your reason. It doesn't matter what you were running from. What matters is what you're sailing towards. Your survival depends entirely on one person, the navigator, the wayfinder. This person holds no map, no compass, no modern instruments. Their mind is the chart, their body is the compass. At night, you watch them. They don't just look at the stars, they are in a conversation with them. They know the paths of hundreds of stars, their rising and setting points creating a celestial compass on the dome of the sky. They can tell your latitude by how high a familiar star sits above the horizon. And here's a little piece of magic you might not know about: the navigator can read the ocean itself. Lie down on the wooden platform. Close your eyes. Can you feel that? A deep, persistent swell rolling in from the northeast, a wave pattern that has traveled thousands of miles. The navigator can feel the subtle ways these swells refract and bend around islands that are still hundreds of miles away, far beyond the horizon. They are literally feeling their way across the planet's largest ocean. It's a skill so refined, so attuned to the environment, that it feels like a superpower. Days bleed into weeks. Your world shrinks to the rhythm of the sun and stars, the taste of dried fish and taro paste, the careful rationing of fresh water. The greatest danger isn't a storm. It's despair. It's the crushing emptiness of seeing nothing but water, day after day, and wondering if you made a terrible mistake. You watch the seabirds, the terns and boobies that fly out to fish but must return to land at night. You follow their evening flight path, a living arrow pointing towards a home you can't yet see. Then one morning, a cry goes up. It's not a dramatic shout, but a quiet, certain word from the navigator. HES pointing, not at an island, but at a stationary cloud, a different shape from the others that drift by. A cloud that is anchored to something solid. A new energy ripples through the canoe. People stand, shading their eyes, peering into the glare. At first, you see nothing, just the same endless blue. But you keep looking, and then you see it. A smudge. A dark line on the horizon, so faint it could be a trick of the light. But it doesn't disappear. It slowly grows. A collective breath is released. It's land. After an impossible journey, you have found a tiny, lonely, beautiful dot in the middle of the vast, silent ocean. Your new home. The smudge on the horizon solidifies into a shape, and then into a landscape. As your canoe glides closer, the single dark line separates into a tapestry of greens and blacks. This isn't just land, it's a jewel. From the deep blue of the Pacific, the island rises in 3 gentle volcanic slopes, its silhouette soft and inviting against the sky. The shoreline is a dramatic contrast of jagged, black lava rock cliffs and pockets of brilliant white corals and beaches. But what truly takes your breath away, what dominates the entire view, is the forest. It's a sea of green, a dense, unbroken canopy that blankets almost the entire island. And towering above it all are the palms. Thousands upon thousands of them. They stand straightened tall, their feathery crowns swaying in the constant oceanic breeze. You've never seen palms like these before. They are giants, some reaching 60 or 70 feet into the air, with trunks so thick you couldn't wrap your arms around them. This is the Rapa Nui palm, a species that exists nowhere else on Earth. And you don't know it yet, but you are looking at the largest palm forest in the entire Pacific. Your canoe finds a calm bay, a crescent of whites and protected by a natural barrier of dark volcanic rock. The anchor stone is dropped, and you slide over the side into the blessedly shallow, clear water. The feeling of solid ground beneath your feet is almost shocking. After weeks of balancing on a moving deck, the earth feels unnervingly still. You take a few clumsy steps onto the beach, your legs learning how to walk on a stable surface. The air here is different. It's heavy, humid, and rich with the smell of damp earth, decaying leaves, and the sweet perfume of unseen flowers. The constant roar of the open ocean is replaced by the gentler sound of waves lapping the shore and anew, overwhelming chorus birds. The island is alive with them. Flocks of seabirds wheel overhead, their calls echoing across the bay. Smaller birds you don't recognize flit between the trees at the edge of the beach. Their songs are complex and beautiful music. They are utterly fearless. Some land just a few feet away from you, their heads cocked with curiosity. They have never known a predator on this land. And that's the first strange and wonderful thing you notice. There's a distinct lack of things. No slithering snakes, no scary reptiles, and most importantly, no land mammals. The largest native animal you will ever find here is likely an insect or a small lizard. It's a fact that makes the island feel uniquely safe, a gentle kingdom of birds and plants. You've arrived in a place without monsters. You venture past the tree line, into the cool shade of the forest. The scale of the palms is immense. Their trunks march away in every direction, the sunlight filtering through their high fronds to dapple the forest floor. But it's not just palms. You see the twisted, gnarled trunks of the Toro Miro tree. Its wood hard and dense, perfect for carving. There's the how shrub, whose bark you immediately recognize can be stripped and processed to make strong rope and cordage. Ferns of every size and shape carpet the ground. This place is a living toolkit. It has everything you need to build a new life. Your group finds a freshwater source, a spring trickling from the volcanic rock, its water cool and pure, The soil here is dark and rich, a promising sign for the crops you brought with you on the canoe, the precious taro roots, the sweet potatoes, the sugarcane starters that were guarded so carefully throughout the voyage. The island feels like a gift, a reward for your bravery. It is a paradise of abundance. Along the coastline, you see natural lava tubes, deep caves that will provide perfect, ready-made shelter from the wind and rain while you build your first permanent homes. Of course, you see this place as a blank slate, a pristine wilderness. Modern scientists, by studying ancient pollen grains trapped in the mud at the bottom of the island's crater lakes, have pieced together a picture of this lost world. They know about the giant palm, the toromiro, and dozens of other plant species that once thrived here. But even they are still arguing about the details. Was the forest truly an endless sea of palms, as the pollen record seems to suggest? Or was it a more complex mosaic of different woodland types? The exact composition of this Eden you've just landed in remains a topic of spirited academic debate, a puzzle being reassembled one microscopic grain at a time. For now, though, you aren't thinking about pollen. You are thinking about today, about the first meal you will eat on solid ground. The birds are so tame they are easy to catch. The waters just offshore are teeming with fish. Your people gather on the beach as the sun begins to set, the sky turning a brilliant orange pink. A fire is lit for the first time, its smoke a thin gray ribbon rising into the sky, a signal to the gods and ancestors that you have arrived. You are no longer adrift. You have a home. And as you sit there, surrounded by your family, with a full belly and a future brimming with possibility, you feel a profound sense of peace. You are standing at the very beginning of a long and incredible story. The first sunrise on your new island home feels different. The relief of arrival slowly gives way to the sobering reality of the task ahead. Paradise doesn't come with instructions. The first few weeks are a blur of essential, back-breaking work. Your group, guided by the memory of home and the immediate needs of survival, begins to lay the foundations of a new society. You don't just build houses, you build memories of the canoe that saved you. Your first permanent homes, called Hare Paenga, are masterpieces of design and sentiment. They are long, elegant structures with a curved, boat-like shape, as if a canoe had been placed upside down on a foundation of carefully carved basalt stones. The foundation stones are pierced with holes, and flexible wooden poles are inserted and bent over, creating a vaulted frame that you thatch with grasses and palm leaves. Living inside one feels like being back in the safety of the hull. It's a constant, physical reminder of your journey, a way of anchoring your people's origin story into the very architecture of your new lives. Next, you turn to the earth. The rich, volcanic soil is a promise, but it's currently covered by a dense forest, with stone adds as sharp flakes of obsidian that add to a cutting-edge and controlled fire. You begin to clear small pockets of land. The great palms and the dense toromiro trees are felled to make way for your gardens. It's hard work, but necessary. You carefully plant the shoots and roots you carried across the ocean, the starchy taro, the versatile sweet potato, the sweet sugarcane, and the paper mulberry for making barcloth. And here's something a little quirky: you start building stone chicken coops. These aren't just flimsy little huts. They're called Hare Moai, and they are surprisingly complex structures, built with fitted stones and a small, closable entrance. It seems a bit much, building a literal fortress for a bunch of birds, but it tells you everything you need to know about how precious they were. The chickens you brought, along with the Polynesian red that stowed away on your canoes, are the only land animals available for food. Protecting them isn't just a chore, it's a matter of long-term survival. Each egg is a treasure. As your settlement grows, your society begins to take shape. It's not one big, happy commune. Your group is made up of different family lines, and soon you organize yourselves into clans, or mata. Each clan claims a stretch of the island, typically a strip running from the coast up into the forested interior. This gives every group access to the sea for fishing, the shoreline for gathering, the lowlands for farming, and the forests for wood. Your new society isn't a democracy. It's a collection of family businesses, and the business is thriving. This division of land is crucial, because it establishes the most sacred space for each clan its stretch of coastline. And it is here, facing inland towards the village, that you begin to build the AHU. An AHU is a long, low, rectangular stone platform. The first ones are relatively modest, built from rough volcanic rock. They are precisely constructed, often with a high, straight wall at the back and a gently sloping ramp at the front. But an AHU is so much more than a stone wall. It's a bridge. It's the place where the world of the living touches the world of the spirits. It is a tomb for your most revered ancestors and a temple for your community. The moment you, as a people, decide to build the first one is a turning point. You are no longer just surviving. You are creating a spiritual home. You are consecrating this land, linking your lineage to it forever. The bones of your first elders to pass away on this new land are interred within the AHU. And suddenly, they are no longer gone. They are present. They are watching over you, their spiritual power, their mother, radiating out from the stones to protect your village, ensure good harvests, and bring fortune to your clan. Of course, the exact moment you first set foot on this sand, the precise date you began this whole process, is a mystery that scholars still bicker about. Some analyses of the island's ancient pollen and charcoal suggest you might have arrived as early as 800 AD. Other studies, based on radiographic and dating of early settlement sites, point to a much later arrival, perhaps as late as 1200 AD. Was it one canoe, a single founding event? Or did other canoes follow over the next few generations? Historians are still piecing together the clues, trying to pinpoint the true beginning of your story. For you, the timeline is simpler. There was the time on the water, and now there is the time on the land. And on this land, you have everything you need. Your houses are built, your gardens are planted, and your connection to the ancestors is secured in stone. Life falls into a rhythm dictated by the seasons of planting and harvesting, the tides for fishing, and the sacred duties at your clan's AHU. You feel safe, prosperous, and blessed. Your ancestors are with you. Their presence is silent, powerful hum emanating from the stones. And they are watching, waiting for you to show them the full extent of your devotion. Your clan's AHU is the heart of your community. It's solid, sacred, and reassuring. Standing before it, you can feel the presence of your ancestors, the gentle weight of their protection. You leave offerings of food and precious obsidian tools. You chant their lineages, keeping their memory alive. The system works, and yet there's a quiet, nagging feeling, a human craving for something more tangible. The spirits are here, but they are invisible. Their mana is a force you feel, like the wind, but cannot see. What if you could change that? The idea doesn't arrive in a flash of divine inspiration. It grows slowly, whispered around the evening fires. It starts with your carvings. The Toromira wood is hard and beautiful, and your best artisans carve intricate objects, small figures, ceremonial petals, fish, hooks. You are skilled at giving form to the formless. So, the question arises, soft as a prayer, what if we gave the ancestors a body? What if we carved them a vessel so their spirit could inhabit it? A face so they could watch over us, and eyes so they could see our devotion. You decide to try, but you don't start with a giant. That ambition is still sweeping. The first statues, the very first Moai, are much more intimate. They are human-sized, curved from the herd, dark basalt rock you find along the coast. They are more realistic, less stylized than the iconic figures you might picture in your mind. The proportions are more natural. The feature is softer, more individual. Looking at one of these early statues is like looking at a portrait frozen in stone. You can almost recognize the person they were meant to be. The process is an act of supreme faith. A master carver and his apprentices select a suitable boulder. They don't just see a rock, they see the ancestor waiting within it. With their stone tools, their toki, they begin to chip away the excess. Clink, clink, clink. Each strike is a careful negotiation with the stone. It's slow, painstaking work that takes months, maybe even a year. The entire village supports the effort. Fishermen bring the carvers the best catch. Farmers bring the sweetest potatoes. This isn't one man's project. It's the entire clan's prayer being hammered into reality. As the shape emerges, a recognizable human form, a sense of awe ripples through the community. A head, a torso, arms held rigidly at the sides with long, elegant fingers resting on the hips. It has a face, and it is looking at you. Finally, the day comes to raise it. This is the true test. The finished statue is carefully moved from its birthplace to the clan's AHO, with ropes made from how bark and sheer human muscle. You and your king lever the stone figure into a standing position on the sacred platform. The moment it clicks into place, standing upright under the open sky, a collective gasp goes through the crowd. It is no longer just a carving. It has become something else entirely. It is an A-ring aura, a living face of the ancestors. It stands there, its back to the sea, gazing inland over your village, your gardens, your homes. It is a guardian. You haven't placed it there to scare away invaders from the ocean. You've placed it there to watch over you, its children. Its presence seems to focus the ancestral mana, like a lens focusing sunlight. The invisible power now has a source. You can see it, touch it, stand in its shadow. The harvest that year seems more bountiful. Fewer children get sick. Your clan feels stronger, more unified, more blessed than ever before. This is the great success. You have created a physical anchor for your spiritual beliefs. But this success immediately raises a question, one that archaeologists and historians still debate. Who exactly do these statues represent? Was that first Moai a portrait of a specific, recently deceased, beloved chief? A stone version of Grandpa Ho too, his familiar strong jaw and deep-set eyes immortalized for all to see? Or was it a more symbolic representation, the founding father of the clan, a generalized image of ancestral power itself? The truth is, you probably saw it as both, a specific person who embodied the spirit of all who came before. One peculiar detail is that these early, smaller Moai were sometimes moved around and recycled into the larger AHU platforms that were built later. It suggests that as your ambitions grew, the physical forms of the older ancestors were incorporated into the foundations for the new, grander ones. Their power was discarded, but literally built upon. You've done it. You've bridged the gap between the physical and spiritual worlds. The stone ancestor stands silent watch, a testament to your faith and your skill. And as other clans along the coast see the success and prestige your clan has gained from its stone guardian, they will inevitably think the same thing. We need one too. The age of the Moai has begun. With your stone ancestor standing guard, a new era of confidence and prosperity settles over your clan, and it ripples outwards across the entire island. The other clans, seeing your success, have followed your lead. Now as you walk the coastline, the horizon is dotted with the familiar silhouettes of Moai, each one standing watch over its own village. It's a comforting sight, a network of silent, stone guardians linking all the people of the island. Tipatuoti Anue, the navel of the world, as you call it. The decades melt into a century, and then another. Generations are born and live their entire lives under the watchful eyes of the stone faces. The sense of precarious survival that defined your ancestors' first years has been replaced by a deep, settled security. And with that security comes an explosion of life. Your small founding group of a few dozen has blossomed into a thriving population. The island is no longer a vast wilderness with pockets of people. It's a bustling land of people with pockets of wilderness. You wake now to the sounds of a full and busy world. Children's laughter echoes through the village, their numbers greater than ever before. The paths between settlements are well trodden. From your vantage point on a hillside, you can see the smoke from countless cooking fires rising from the thatched roofs of the boat-shaped houses, a sign of abundance. Archaeologists would one day estimate that at its peak, the island was home to somewhere between 10, 0 and 15, 0 people. You don't have numbers, but you feel it. The island is full. Feeding all these mouths is the primary, constant work of your society. And you have become master gardeners. You've cleared more and more of the inland forest for your fields of sweet potato, taro, and yam. But you quickly learned that the tropical sun is harsh and the winds that sweep across the open land can dry out the soil. So you developed an ingenious technique, a form of agricultural magic called lithic mulching. You gather volcanic rocks, break them into smaller pieces, and carefully arrange them over the surface of your garden beds. It looks strange, like you're regrowing stones instead of crops, but it works wonders. The layer of rock protects the soil from the drying wind and sun, helping it retain precious moisture. It prevents soil erosion during heavy rains, and as the rocks slowly break down, they release valuable minerals back into the earth. A natural, slow-release fertilizer. It's a clever hack, a testament to your deep understanding of this land. You're not just farming, you are co-creating a sustainable system with the island itself. Life falls into a peaceful, predictable rhythm. The men tend to the gardens and fish in the coastal waters, though the big, deep-sea fish are harder to come by now that the massive trees needed for large canoes are becoming scarcer. The women manage the households, weave baskets and mats from reeds, and beat the bark of the paper mulberry into soft cloth called tapa. But here's a funny detail historians still puzzle over what was really on your dinner plate every night. The sweet potato was undoubtedly the star of the show, the reliable carbohydrate that fueled your population boom. But what about protein? The chickens in their stone forts were highly valued, perhaps too valued to eat regularly. The fish were plentiful, but mostly smaller, coastal species. And then there's the rat, the Polynesian rat, which arrived as a stowaway on your ancestors' canoes, has multiplied just as you have. For you, it's not just a pest that steals your crops. It's a reliable, if unglamorous, source of food. Archaeologists digging through ancient garbage pits find countless rat bones, suggesting it was a significant part of your diet. The exact balance of fish, fowl, and rodent in the Rapa Nui diet is still a matter of academic debate. For you, it's just supper. This is your golden age. The clans compete, but it's a friendly rivalry, a matter of pride. Who can host the grandest feast? Whose chants are the most beautiful? And of course, whose AHU is the most impressive? Whose Moai stands the proudest? The building of the statues is not yet an obsession, but a healthy and productive expression of faith and community spirit. It unites your clan, gives you purpose, and pleases the ancestors who, in return, bless you with this peaceful, prosperous life. The sun feels warm on your back. The belly of your community is full. The island has given you everything you could ever ask for. The future feels like a straight, clear path. Life is good, predictable, safe. But human nature, especially when things are going well, has a funny habit of whispering, "What if we did it bigger?" The friendly rivalry between the clans has been simmering for generations, expressed in feasts and ceremonies. Now that competitive energy starts to focus on the one thing everyone can see, the Moai. An unspoken challenge begins to ripple across the island. The era of the modest, human-sized basalt statues is over. The age of giants is about to begin. Your clan, like every other clan, makes a monumental decision. You are no longer content to use the scattered, hard basalt boulders found along the coast. The material is too dense, too difficult to work with on a massive scale, and you're running out of suitable stones. You need a dedicated, reliable, and slightly softer source material. You need a factory. And so, you turn your eyes inward, towards the heart of the island, to the slopes of a dormant volcano called Rano Raraku. This place is special. It's not just a mountain, it's a geological treasure. Rano Raraku is made of a unique material consolidated volcanic ash, or tuff. It's a rock, solid and durable enough to last for centuries, but soft enough that you can carve it with your existing stone tools. It's the perfect medium for your burgeoning ambition. The day your clan's master carver and his team make the trek to the slopes of Rano Raraku marks the official, thunderous opening of the statue factory. When you arrive, it's not just your clan's team. Dozens of carving crews from all over the island are here. The southern face of the volcano's quarry is a hive of activity. A deafening chorus of clinking and chipping echoes across the crater, the sound of hundreds of stone adzes striking volcanic tuff. This isn't a sacred, quiet space anymore. It's a noisy, dusty, industrial zone, the single biggest enterprise your society has ever undertaken. You are witnessing the birth of a production line. The master carvers, the Tungata Maori and Ga Moai, are the project managers. They survey the rock face, identifying the best spots to begin a new statue. They look for areas free of cracks or hard inclusions. Then, with a ceremonial first strike, they outline the shape of the giant directly onto the living rock. The statues are carved in situ, lying on their backs, face up to the sky. You watch as a team of laborers, maybe 10 to 15 men, descend upon the outlined shape. First, they chip away a deep trench around the entire perimeter of the statue, isolating the block of stone from the mountainside. The sheer amount of rubble they have to remove is staggering. Little by little, the familiar shape of a moa begins to emerge from the cliff face, the long, sloping nose, the heavy brow, the tight-lipped expression. All the detail of the front and sides of the statue is completed right here, while it's still attached to the bedrock. The long, elegant fingers are carved, the earlobes are elongated, and intricate patterns are sometimes incised on the back. It's a process of reverse archaeology. Instead of digging something up, you are revealing it, freeing it from the mountain. Of course, this centralization of production raises a fascinating question that historians still puzzle over. How was this industrial site managed? Rano Raraku wasn't in any single clan's territory. It was a neutral, shared space. Was there a special carvers guild that controlled access? Did clans have to pay some sort of tribute to be allowed to quarry there? Or was it a free-for-all, with teams staking out their patch of rock like a gold rush? The social and political organization required to run this massive, open-air factory, with rival clans working side by side, is one of the island's great unspoken mysteries. You just know the system works. Your team has its spot, their team has theirs, and the work goes on. As you stand there, amidst the dust and the noise, you can see the whole process laid out on the mountainside. High up, new statues are just being outlined. Further down, others are nearly complete, their features sharp and clean. And at the bottom of the quarry, waiting in long rows, are the finished giants, freed from the mountain, their backs attached only by a thin keel of rock. They lie there, patiently, silently, their blank eyes staring at the clouds, waiting for the day they will be snapped free and begin the even more difficult journey to the coast. You look at the scale of the operation, the sheer number of bodies, the ambition carved into the rock, and you feel a surge of pride. You are no longer just making monuments. You are manufacturing gods. And business is booming. You're standing at the foot of the quarry wall, so close you can reach out and touch a half-finished giant. The air is warm and hazy with fine, pale dust that coats your skin and gets in your teeth. The relentless, rhythmic thunk, thunk, thunk of stone hitting stone is the only music here. It's the heartbeat of your island's ambition. You look up at the Carvers perched precariously on the rock face above, and you decide you want to understand what they do. You want to feel the work. A craftsman hands you a tool. It's a toki, a stone adze. It feels deceptively simple, almost primitive. The handle is a smooth, sturdy piece of wood from a how shrub. The cutting head is what matters. It's a flake of black basalt, chipped and ground to a sharp edge. You'll heft it in your hand. It's heavy. You realize you are holding a piece of one mountain that you will use to carve another. Stone against stone. That's all you have. You find a discarded chunk of the yellowish gray tuffen, copying the motions you've seen. You swing the adze. The impact jars your arm right up to the shoulder. It's not a clean slice, like an axe in wood. It's a pulverizing blow. A small cloud of dust and a few crumbs of rock fly off. You strike it again, and again. It is brutally hard, repetitive work. After just a few minutes, your muscles are screaming, and you've barely made a dent. You look at the grand, serene faces emerging from the rock around you, and your respect for the Carvers deepens into profound awe. These men are true masters. They don't just whack at the stone, they have an intimate relationship with it. A master carver can read the tuff like you read the water. They can tell by the sound of the strike if there's a flaw or a hard inclusion hidden within the rock that could crack the statue and waste months of labor. They work with a focus, patient grace. You watch one of them, a man whose hands are gnarled and permanently grayed by stone dust. He is working on a face. With a larger, heavier toki, he defines the great, blocky mass of the brow. Thunk. Thunk. Then he switches to a smaller, finer edge, the basalt chipped to a more delicate point. With this, he works on the details. He shapes the long, straight slope of the nose. He carves the thin, pursed lips into their characteristic expression, not quite a smile, not quite a frown, but a look of serene, otherworldly authority. He hollows out the gentle curve of the elongated earlobes. Every single feature of these stoic giants is brought into being by this simple, jarring act of a harder stone pulverizing a softer one. And here you notice something fascinating, a detail that speaks volumes. The eyes. They are not carved. Where the eyes should be, the carver leaves only the shallow, almond-shaped outline of the socket. The faces are all blank. They are asleep. You realize that a Moai is not born here in the quarry. It is merely fabricated. Its body is assembled. The moment of its awakening, when it is filled with the living spirit of the ancestor, comes later. The eyes, you learn, will be inlaid only at the very end of the process, once the statue is standing on its AHU by the coast. They will be made of brilliant white coral, with pupils of dark red scoria or black obsidian. It is only then, when its eyes are opened, that the Moai will truly see. This distinction between making and awakening is crucial, and it raises a question that archaeologists still debate: what was the social standing of these carvers? Were they seen as a priestly class of sacred artists, like shamans channeling the ancestors into stone? Or were they viewed as a guild of highly skilled but ultimately secular contractors? Did a clan commission a statue the way you might order a new canoe, paying the carvers in food and goods for their labor? The truth is probably somewhere in between, a blend of deep spiritual reverence and practical, project-based work. You look around the quarry. It's a gallery of the sleeping. Some are nearly finished, their forms smooth and perfect, waiting only for the final channel to be cut underneath them to free them from the mountain. Others are mere outlines, the ghost of a face just beginning to haunt the rock. The ground is littered with millions of basalt flakes, the worn out, broken heads of the toki. The carvers must have gone through thousands of them for each statue, A constant supply chain of new tools being brought from the basalt quarries to this giant open-air workshop. This place, Rano Raraku, is a testament to your people's ingenuity and sheer force of will. You have no metal, no wheels, no draft animals, but you have patience, you have community, and you have the unshakable belief that with this simple stone tool, you can carve gods out of the living earth. You've gotten used to the noise and the dust of Rano Raraku. You understand the skill, the patience, the faith that goes into freeing a single ancestor from the mountain. But as you spend more time here, watching the crews from different clans at work, you start to notice a subtle but undeniable shift in the atmosphere. The patient, sacred work of creation is being replaced by something else, something with a frantic, competitive edge. High fever is taking hold of your people. It's no longer enough just to have a moa watching over your village. That's yesterday's news. The question now is, how big is your moa? The rivalry between the clans has found a new, very public scoreboard, and it's measured in tons of stone. You start to see it in the quarry. The new statues being laid out on the rock face are on a completely different scale. The ones your grandfather's generation carved were maybe 10 to 12 feet tall. Impressive but still approachable. The new ones being roughed out are 20, 25, even 30 feet high. They are monsters. Goliaths. This isn't just an increase in size, it's a change in philosophy. The earlier statues had a certain individuality to them. These new ones are becoming more stylized, more uniform, as if they are coming off an assembly line for titans. The features are exaggerated, the brow heavier, the nose longer, the jaw more square and imposing. They are less like portraits of a beloved ancestor and more like pure, overwhelming expressions of power. It's not enough to have a guardian anymore. You need a bouncer. The spirit of competition is palpable. A crew from a clan on the north coast finishes a 20-foot statue. A massive achievement. Word travels fast. A month later, you hear that their rivals on the south coast have just begun outlining a new moai that will be a full head taller. The master carvers are being pushed to their absolute limits, not just of skill, but of engineering. How big can you make one of these things before it simply can't support its own weight? This frantic race to the sky changes everything. A bigger statue requires more carvers, working for more months. That means more food must be grown and sent to the quarry to feed them. It means more turkey must be quarried and shaped. More water must be carried. More of your clan's able-bodied men are here, chipping away at a mountain, instead of fishing or farming or building houses. The moai are ceasing to be just a part of your life. They are becoming the very center of it. Your clan's honor, its mana in the eyes of the island, is now directly tied to the height of the ancestor you can raise. And then you see it. The ultimate expression of this magnificent, terrifying obsession. A master carver takes you to a section of the quarry you haven't seen before. Then there, lying on its back, still fused to the bedrock along its spine, is a moa so enormous it scrambles your sense of scale. The locals have a name for it, Pearl, but you can only think of it as the unfinished giant. It is almost 70 feet long, twice the height of any other statue ever successfully carved. If it were to stand up, it would be as tall as a modern 6-story building. It weighs an estimated 270 tons, the equivalent of almost 50 large elephants. Its head alone is the size of a small house. You walk along its length, feeling dwarfed, insignificant. The carvers had almost finished it. The face is defined. The body is smooth. It lies there, a perfect, colossal god waiting for a birth that will never come. Why was it abandoned? That's a question scholars still debate. Did the carvers hit a flaw in the rock at the last minute? Did the clan that commissioned it suffer some catastrophe? Or did they simply do the math and realize that even if they could cut it free, they could never, ever hope to move it? This single, sleeping giant is the high watermark of your people's ambition, a dream so big it broke reality. This entire escalating frenzy, this statue arms race is a huge puzzle for historians. What was really driving it? Was it a purely religious impulse? A belief that bigger statues held more mana and would bring greater blessings from the ancestors? Or was it political? A game of one-upmanship between powerful chiefs, using the Moai as a way to display their wealth and their ability to command vast resources of labor. A stone carved "My kingdom is richer than your kingdom." Or, and this is a darker theory, was it an act of desperation? A plea to the ancestors, growing louder and more grandiose as the island's resources began to show the first subtle signs of strain. You don't have the answer. All you know is what you feel as you stand in the shadow of the unfinished giant. The pride is still there, but now it's mixed with a quiet hum of anxiety. This isn't sustainable. The sound of the quarry, once a comforting heartbeat, now sounds like a frantic, consuming hunger. The giants are eating your island. The giants are carved, sleeping in their stone beds in the quarry of Rano Raraku. But freeing them from the mountain is only the first act. The second act is the one that has baffled outsiders for centuries and is the source of endless, passionate debate among archaeologists even today. How in the world did you move them? You're standing at the base of the quarry, looking at a newly detached Moai. It's a modest one, maybe 15 feet tall, weighing a tidy 10 to 12 tons. It has been lowered down the slope from its carving berth using a system of ropes and log rollers, a precarious, controlled slide that is a marvel of engineering in itself. It now lies on its back in a specially dug trench, ready for transport. The destination is your clan's AHU, maybe 5 or 6 miles away on the coast. There are no wheels here, no cranes, no beasts of burden, just wood, rope, and people. This is the great problem, and your people came up with a solution so ingenious that for a long time, modern scholars refused to believe it. They proposed all sorts of complex theories involving massive wooden sledges, elaborate trackways, and hundreds of people. But the oral traditions of your elders, passed down through generations, always said the same thing. The Moai didn't slide to the AHU. They walked. You get to see it firsthand. The transport team, the specialists in this sacred and dangerous work, arrives. The first thing they do is raise the Moai into a standing position. This alone is a huge task, done with a system of levers long, sturdy pulls and a slowly growing pile of rocks. People pry up one side of the statue, just a few inches. Others shove stones underneath. Then they pry up the other side. Inch by inch, over hours, they build a cairn of rocks beneath the statue until it is standing upright, balanced precariously. Now, the magic begins. 3 sets of ropes are attached. 2 are tied to the top of the head, like reins, held by teams of people standing off to the sides. A third, thicker rope is wrapped around the base. The leader of the transport team stands in front of the statue, like a conductor. He begins a chant. It's a rhythmic song, a work song that everyone knows. At his signal, the left team pulls on their rope. The statue, which has a cleverly designed forward-leaning posture and a D-shape, beveled base, tilts slightly to the left. Its center of gravity shifts. Then, the real genius comes into play. As it's tilted, the team controlling the rope at the base pulls sharply, swiveling the entire statue forward on its canted edge. Rivalry. It moves forward maybe 6 inches. It has taken a step. Then, the conductor signals the other side. The right team pulls. The statue tilts to the right. The base team pulls again. Rivalry. Another 6-inch step. Left, pull, swivel. Right, pull, swivel. The chant gets louder. The movement's more fluid. The Moai begins to waddle. It rots back and forth, its giant stone body shuffling forward in a clumsy, hypnotic dance. It is walking. It's slow, painstaking, and incredibly dangerous. If one team pulls too hard or the rhythm breaks, the 10-ton ancestor will come crashing to the ground, shattering itself and anyone foolish enough to be in its way. But when it works, it is a sight of pure, unbelievable genius. Of course, this walking theory, pioneered in recent decades by archaeologists who took the native oral traditions seriously, is still hotly contested. Some researchers maintain it's simply not feasible for the larger statues. They stick to the horizontal transport theory, arguing the Moai were laid on their backs or fronts on a wooden sledge, something like a giant ladder, and dragged over log rollers. The roads that crisscross the island, wide, cleared paths, show evidence of wear patterns that could support either theory. So did the Moai walk or slide? The academic argument is fierce and ongoing, a central mystery of your world. One of the most peculiar pieces of evidence in this debate comes from the statues themselves. All along the ancient roads, you find Moai that didn't make it. They lie fallen, often face down, sometimes broken in half. Proponents of the walking theory point out that a statue falling forward while walking would land exactly like this. Proponents of the sledge theory argue the statues could have just as easily tipped off their transport sled. For you, these fallen giants are a tragic sight, sleeping ancestors who never reached their home. They are lost on the roadside. You watch the walking giant for hours as it shuffles its way across the landscape. To make this journey possible, you realize just how many trees it's consuming. You need sturdy logs for the levers. You need endless lengths of strong rope, which you make from the bark of the hauhau shrub. But the ultimate source of fiber is the mighty palm tree. Every step the Moai takes is fueled by the forest. As you watch the great stone figure rock and sway its way towards the horizon, you can't help but look back at the green canopy of the island. For the first time, you see the forest not as an endless resource, but as the fuel for this great, walking hunger. The journey is over. The giant has walked from the quarry of Rano Raraku and now stands at the edge of your clan's territory, waiting. Its new home, the AHU platform on the coast, has been prepared. It has been enlarged and strengthened to bear the immense new weight, a feat of stone masonry almost as impressive as the statue itself. But the work isn't finished. Your giant is bald. And in your culture, a bald ancestor is an incomplete ancestor. It's time to give the giant its hat. This hat is not really a hat. It's a Pukao, a massive, cylindrical block of deep red stone that will be placed on the Moai's head. It's a symbol of power, of top-notch air, a mark of high status and spiritual authority. And getting one is a whole new logistical nightmare, a side quest in your epic journey of ancestor construction. To get the right material, you have to travel to a different volcano entirely. You head to a quarry called Pukao, a small, reddish cinder cone on the island's southwest. The rock here is different from the gray tuff of the statue quarry. It's scoria, a type of volcanic rock that is full of gas bubbles. This makes it much lighter than the dense stuff of the Moai, and it has a striking, rusty red color. The scene at Pukao is a smaller, quieter, and redder version of Rano Raraku. Here, carving crews quarry out enormous cylinders of the scoria. The process is similar, but the shapes are simpler. They carve a big, round drum of rock, then pop it out of the hillside and roll it down. You watch as a team rolls a freshly carved Pukao away from the quarry. It's like a colossal red barrel, maybe 6 feet high and 7 feet in diameter, weighing several tons. Rolling it across the island's uneven terrain is hard enough. But the real question is the one that has made archaeologists scratch their heads for years. How did you get that multi-ton cylinder onto the head of a 30-foot-tall statue? The statue was already standing on its AHU. You can't exactly ask it to kneel. You witness the process, another testament to your people's low-tech, high-ingenuity problem-solving. First, the team builds a massive ramp. Using earth and thousands of rocks, they construct a long, gently sloping causeway leading up to the back of the Moai's head. It takes days, maybe weeks, to build this temporary structure. It has to be solid enough to support the weight of the Pukao. Next comes the hard part. Using ropes and wooden levers, they begin to push and pull the giant red cylinder up the ramp. It's a slow, grueling process. The whole village might be called to help, pulling on the ropes, chanting to keep the rhythm. You can hear the scoria scraping against the rocks of the ramp, the wood of the levers groaning under the strain. Once they get the Pukao to the top of the ramp, level with the flat-topped head, the final, most delicate maneuver begins. They have to pivot the cylinder from the ramp onto the head. With a system of smaller levers, they nudge it, shift it, and slowly, carefully, work it into position. The moment it settles into place, a great cheer goes up. The giant now has its crown. The ramp will be dismantled, stone by stone, until the mower stands free, complete in its red-topped glory. Of course, this is just one theory. The ramp theory is the most widely accepted by scholars, but like everything else on this island, it's not without debate. Some have proposed that the Pukao was placed on the Moai's head while the statue was still lying on the ground, and the whole assembly was then raised as one unit, an even more mind-boggling feat of engineering. Others suggest a system of wooden scaffolds and levers was used to hoist it straight up. The academic jury is still out. And here's a quirky little detail. On top of some Pukao, Carvers etched petroglyphs, small carvings. Some depict birds, others canoes. It's as if, after all the monumental effort to get the hat on the head, someone climbed up and added a final, personal touch, like a little stone signature. With the Pukao in place, the final step can happen. The master carver, or perhaps a priest, climbs up one last time. He stands before the blank face of the giant, and with precious, imported materials, brilliant white coral for the sclera and dark red scoria for the iris, he inlays the eyes. He opens them, and in that moment, the statue is no longer a statue. It is no longer just a block of stone. Mana floods into the vessel. The ancestor is awake. It can see. Its gaze, directed over your village, is now an active, potent force of protection. Your clan has a new, fully powered, red-headed guardian, and it is magnificent. The red-crowned giant stands magnificent, its new coral eyes gazing out over your village. You feel a surge of pride and security that is deeper and more potent than ever before. Your clan is powerful. Your ancestor is awake. The feasts are lavish. The mood is triumphant. But as the celebration fades and daily life resumes, you start to notice things. Small things at first, subtle changes in the landscape that you can't quite put your finger on. You go to the forest edge to gather firewood. It used to be a short walk. Now, you have to walk further. The edge of the woods has receded. The familiar, dense wall of green that once bordered your village is thinner now. And beyond it, you can see open grassland where there used to be trees. It's a bit strange, but you dismiss it. Your clan is growing. You have more cooking fires to feed. It's only natural. Then, you join a crew heading into the interior to fell a large tree for a new construction project. In your grandfather's time, this was a simple task. The forest was thick with massive, ancient palms and sturdy toromero trees. But now, the crew spends a whole day searching for a tree of the right size and quality. The giants, the truly ancient ones, are gone. You settle for a smaller, younger palm. As it falls, it opens up a wide patch of sky in the canopy, and the sunlight that hits the forest floor feels harsh and unfamiliar. You start seeing it everywhere. The teams transporting the Moai need countless logs for rollers and levers. The carving crews at Rano Raraku and Pukao need wood for their fires and their tools. The boat builders, one's able to craft large, Seaworthy canoes from single, massive trunks are now forced to piece together smaller planks of wood. The deep-sea fishing expeditions that brought back tuna and shark are becoming rare. Your world is shrinking, from the deep ocean back to the shallow coast. This is the moment of quiet, creeping realization. The forest, which once seemed as infinite and inexhaustible as the ocean itself, is finite. Every giant statue that walks to the coast, every Pukao rolled into place, every new cooking fire in your expanding village, is paid for with a piece of the forest. The two great projects of your society, growing your population and growing your statues, are consuming your world. One day, you stand on one of the island's 3 volcanic peaks, Moai, the highest point. From here, you can see almost the entire island laid out below you like a map. In your ancestors' time, this view would have been an unbroken sea of green, a lush carpet of palm forest stretching from coast to coast. Now what you see is a patchwork quilt. There are still large areas of green, but they are increasingly fragmented, isolated, and between them are ever-expanding swaths of open grassland, dotted with the rock piles of your lithic mulch gardens. You can clearly see the paths of deforestation radiating out from the quarries, the cleared land for agriculture spreading like a stain. For the first time, you see the true scale of your impact. The full picture of this deforestation was a mystery until modern scientists analyzed the pollen record from the island's crater lakes. The microscopic grains trapped in the mud layers tell a dramatic, silent story. They show that for centuries, the pollen was overwhelmingly from the giant Rapa Nui palm. Then, around the same time the statue building craze reached its peak, the palm pollen starts to decline, slowly at first, then catastrophically. It is replaced by the pollen of grasses and ferns, the opportunistic plants that take over cleared land. The scientific data confirms what you are just beginning to see with your own eyes. You are living through an ecological collapse in slow motion. Of course, the debate rages in academic circles about the exact timeline and the ultimate cause. Was it solely the result of human activity, the ecocide theory, or did something else contribute? Some scientists point to the role of the Polynesian rat. The stowaway rats, with no natural predators, would have multiplied into the millions. They would have feasted on the palm nuts, preventing the forest from regenerating itself. Was it you, or the rats, or a deadly combination of both? This question of who killed the last tree is one of the most contentious issues in the island's history. You walk down from the peak, a cold knot of anxiety in your stomach. The sight of the island from above has changed your perspective forever. You look at the great Moai in your village. Its reed had a proud splash of color against the sky. But now, you see its hidden cost. You see the ghosts of the trees that were felled to move it. The statue was meant to guarantee your prosperity. But as you look at the receding forest, you begin to wonder, for the very first time, if the price of your ancestors' stony gaze is a price you can no longer afford to pay. The quiet anxiety you felt watching the forest shrink soon finds a voice in the grumbling of your stomach. For generations, the sea has been your second pantry. The men would go out in their canoes, returning with bountiful catches that supplemented your gardens. But something is changing. The fishing crews are coming back with less. Their nets, once heavy with the sleek bodies of tuna and the occasional shark, now hold only smaller, coastal fish. The deep ocean is becoming a forbidden zone. The reason is simple and stark, and it floats, or rather, doesn't float in the bay. You look at your clan's canoes drawn up on the beach. They are smaller now, more fragile. Gone are the magnificent, seagoing vessels of your ancestors, the Valkyrie carved from the single, colossal trunk of a giant palm tree. There are no such trees left. The last one was felled years ago, probably to help move a particularly stubborn Moai. Now your boat builders are forced to improvise. They scavenged for smaller pieces of wood, the gnarled limbs of the Toro Miro, scraps of whatever they can find. They stitch them together, creating a patchwork canoe. It's a testament to your builder's skill, but these vessels are leaky, less stable. They are good enough for hugging the coastline, for fishing in the reefs and the shallow bays. But taking one of these out into the deep, unforgiving swells of the open Pacific, that's not bravery, it's suicide. So, you stop. The deep-sea fishing expeditions, the heroic journeys that provided so much of your protein, simply cease to be possible. You are marooned on your own island in a new, more profound way. You are surrounded by an ocean of food that you can no longer reach. This has a direct impact on your diet. You rely more and more on the coastal resources. The men spend their days casting nets from the shore or fishing from the rocks. The women and children scour the tidal pools for shellfish, crabs, and sea urchins. The pressure on the near-shore ecosystem becomes immense. The reefs that once teemed with life are picked clean. The shellfish populations dwindle. You have to work harder and harder for a smaller and smaller return. And here's a sad little detail that archaeologists discovered in the island's middens: the ancient garbage heap. In the older layers of these pits, they find the bones of large, deep-water fish like tuna and swordfish, along with the bones of dolphins. Yes, dolphins. Your ancestors, with their great canoes, were capable of hunting dolphins on the open sea, a feat of incredible skill and a source of immense amounts of food. But as you dig through the layers of time, these bones disappear. In the newer layers, all you find are the tiny bones of small, inshore fish and the shells of limpets and snails. The archaeological record tells the silent story of your shrinking world. Your diet became less diverse, less nutritious. You went from being hunters of the open ocean to scavengers of the shoreline. Of course, the debate about the timeline of this collapse continues. Did the deforestation happen quickly? A rapid blitz that left you canoeless in just a few generations? Or was it a much slower burn, a gradual decline over centuries, with periods of scarcity followed by brief recoveries? The evidence is ambiguous, and scholars argue passionately about the pace of the disaster. But you don't need to debate the pace. You live it. You see the worried faces of the fishermen. You hear the disappointment in their voices when they return with a meager catch. The loss of the great canoes is more than just a dietary problem. It's a psychological blow. They were your connection to the wider world, a symbol of your ancestors' courage and your identity as a seafaring people. Your ancestors crossed the greatest ocean on the planet to find this island. Now you can barely leave the shore. You stand on the cliff edge, looking out at the endless, blue horizon. It no longer looks like a highway of opportunity. It looks like a wall. The Moai on the HU behind you has its back to the sea, its eyes fixed firmly inland. It was meant to watch over the land, to ensure your prosperity here. But it occurs to you that in your single-minded focus on the land and the ancestors who stood upon it, you have collectively turned your back on the ocean, the very thing that brought you here and once sustained you. The silent stone giant at your back suddenly feels less like a guardian and more like a cage. You turn your back on the uselessly vast ocean and look inland, towards the gardens. The sea may have betrayed you, cutting you off from its bounty, but the land has always been your bedrock. The rich, volcanic soil, carefully tended with your stone mulch, has fueled your golden age. It has to be enough. It just has to be. But the land is changing, too. It's not just the trees that are gone. It's what the trees used to do. The rain, for instance. The rain used to be a friend. It would fall on the dense canopy of the palm forest, dripping gently down to the forest floor, soaking slowly into the absorbent, root-filled earth. The forest was a great sponge that captured and tamed the sky's generosity. Now, with the sponge gone, the rain is an enemy. When the seasonal storms roll in off the Pacific, they are no longer life-giving. They are destructive. The rain hammers directly onto the exposed earth. You watch from the shelter of your boat-shaped house as the water, instead of soaking in, begins to move. It carves, little rivulets in your garden plots, then joins into larger streams, and finally into muddy torrents. You can see the water turning brown. That color is the life of your island. It's the topsoil, the precious, thin layer of fertile earth that takes centuries to form, and you are watching it wash away in a single afternoon. The streams and springs that once ran crystal clear now run thick and brown after every downpour, like a wound beating the island's lifeblood directly into the sea. You can see the plume of brown water fanning out from the coastline, a stain spreading into the pristine blue. You are literally watching your farm dissolve into the ocean. And it's not just the water. It's the wind. The forest was once a great wall that broke the force of the constant trade winds. Now, with the windbreak gone, the gales sweep unimpeded across the entire island. You can feel it as a constant, wearing pressure. The wind dries out the soil, sucking the moisture from your sweet potato plants. On dry days, you can see clouds of fine, dark dust lifting from the fields and blowing out to sea. More of your island, just vanishing into the air. Your lithic mulching, the clever trick of covering the soil with stones, helps. It's the only thing that allows you to grow anything at all. But it's not enough to stop the relentless erosion from wind and water. The effect is slow but inexorable. The harvests get smaller. The sweet potatoes are not as large or as numerous. The soil is tired, thin, and pale. The gardens that once fed a thriving population with these now require frantic effort to produce a meager yield. You spend your days building low stone walls, or manivee, around your garden plots, little circular shelters to protect the precious soil and plants from the wind. Your entire agricultural effort has shifted from confident expansion to a desperate, defensive crouch. Here's a small, sad detail that modern soil scientists have confirmed. By analyzing the soil profiles, they can see the catastrophic loss of nutrients. They know that the soil today is a shadow of its former self. But they still debate the timeline and the primary culprit. Was the erosion a sudden, dramatic event caused by a few seasons of intense storms hitting the newly deforested landscape? Or was it a slower, more grinding process of degradation over decades? Was it the rain, or was the incessant, drying wind an even bigger factor in the soil's decline? For scholars, it's a fascinating ecological puzzle. For you, it's a slow-motion famine. You see the results etched on the faces around you. People are thinner. The joyous, island-wide feasts that celebrated the erection of a new Moai are a distant memory. Food is no longer for celebration. It's for survival. The portions are smaller. The mood around the cooking fires is anxious, not communal. The terrible irony is not lost on you. You stand before your clan's magnificent Moai, performing the old rituals, chanting for a bountiful harvest. You pray to the ancestor whose very creation required the felling of the forest that once protected your soil. You are asking the cause of the illness to provide the cure. And as you look from the stoic stone face down to the pale, dying earth at your feet, a terrifying new thought begins to form. The ancestors are not answering. Or maybe, even worse, this is their answer. The gnawing emptiness in your stomach becomes a constant companion. The land is tired, the sea is distant, and the promises of the ancestors feel hollow. Driven by a grim curiosity, you decide to make the long walk back to the place where it all began. The heart of the island's grand obsession, the Quarry of Rano Raraku. The journey itself is a sad pilgrimage through the world you haven't made. You walk for hours across open, sun-scorched grasslands where you once walked in the cool shade of palms. The wind is relentless, carrying the loose topsoil with it. You have to shield your eyes from the dust. As you get closer, the first thing you notice is the silence. The air, which should be ringing with the percussive symphony of hundreds of stone edzes, is dead quiet. The only sound is the lonely whistle of the wind moving through the volcanic crater. The factory has shut down. You walk into the quarry, and the silence becomes heavy, oppressive. It's a museum of abandoned dreams. The dust of decades has settled over everything, softening the sharp edges of the catastrophe. It's as if the workers simply vanished in the middle of a shift. Stone jewelers, the basalt choki, lie on the ground next to their finished faces, as if they were dropped a moment ago. A fine layer of lichen is beginning to grow on the handles. You see Mo in every conceivable stage of incompletion. Here is one that is just an outline, a ghost in the rock, its form barely hinted at. Over there, a face is fully carved, but the body still merges with the mountainside. You walk past a giant whose front is completely finished, a perfect, serene expression on its face, but the carvers never started the work of undercutting its back to free it. It will lie there forever, staring at the sky. In all, you count dozens, hundreds of sleeping ancestors. There are more statues still in the quarry than were ever successfully transported and directed on an AHU. The sheer waste of labor is staggering. It's a landscape of failure. You see the unfinished giant, Turtle, again. Last time you saw it, it was a symbol of boundless ambition. Now, it just looks foolish. A monument to hubris, a dream so large it starved the dreamer. And then you see a truly bizarre figure, one you hadn't noticed before, half buried on the inner slopes. It's a statue called Tukuturi. It is utterly different from all the others. Instead of standing tall and straight, it is kneeling. Its hands are resting on its thighs, not held rigidly at its stomach. It has a rounded, more naturalistic head and even a small beard. It looks like it's in a position of supplication. Those prayer. Who is this? Archaeologists of the future will be baffled by Tukuturi. Was it a very early, experimental form that was abandoned? Or, more tantalizingly, was it one of the very last statues ever carved? A desperate, last-ditch attempt at a new kind of ancestor. A humble one, a kneeling one, begging for forgiveness from gods who had stopped listening to the proud, arrogant giants. The meaning of this lonely, kneeling figure remains one of the island's most profound and debated mysteries. You try to imagine the last day. The carvers are thin, their ribs showing. Their families back at the village are hungry. They look up from their work, chipping away at a 50-ton giant, and see the barren hills around them. They listen to the hollow sound of their heads striking the rock, and they realize the terrible truth: they are carving stone representations of the very ancestors whose blessing they need to survive. Yet the act of carving is precisely what is destroying the resources that allow them to live. The mana isn't working. The magic has failed. Was it a dramatic rebellion? Did the workers throw down their tools in anger at the chiefs? Or was it a quieter, sadder moment? A collective, unspoken realization that the whole enterprise was a dead end. Perhaps the master carver simply stopped, laid his toki on the ground, and with a weary sigh, turned and walked away. And one by one, the others followed, leaving the quarry to the silence and the wind. You stand in the midst of this silent army of the unfinished. The place that was once the roaring, beating heart of your world is now its tombstone. The faith that powered your civilization for 500 years didn't just fade away. It died right here, on this mountain, leaving behind a field of stone corpses as evidence of its demise. You turn your back on the sleeping giants and begin the long walk home, the silence of the quarry echoing in your mind. It's the sound of the end. You return from the silence of Rano Raraku to a world that is no longer quiet. The silence of the quarry has been replaced by a new sound in your village, the sound of human conflict. The hunger that was once a private, gnawing ache in your own belly is now a public, angry force. The social fabric that held your clans together for centuries, woven from shared faith and abundance, is starting to unravel, thread by thread. It starts with whispers. You hear them in the evenings, huddled in your boat-shaped houses that now feel less like homes and more like defensive shelters. People talk about the neighboring clan. Their harvest was slightly better than yours this year. How is that fair? Their chief must have some hidden power. Or maybe, just maybe, they have been stealing from your gardens in the dead of night. Trust, the invisible foundation of your society is eroding as quickly as the topsoil. The whispers soon turn into accusations. A fisherman from your clan claims a fisherman from another clan stole from his nets. A woman swears she saw someone from the south sneaking around her stone chicken coop. There's no proof, just suspicion. But in this new world of scarcity, suspicion is enough. The old, friendly rivalries, the competitions over who could host the best feast, have curdled into bitter resentment. Feasts are a distant memory. Now you hoard what little you have. You begin to see things you've never seen before. Arguments break out at the boundaries between clan lands. Fights over access to the dwindling freshwater sources. The concept of shared resources, like the reeds at the crater lake used for thatching roofs, becomes a point of contention. Everything is now a zero, sum game. For my family to eat, yours must eat less. This growing tension is something archaeologists can see, faintly, in the archaeological record. They call it resource guarding. They find an increase in the construction of defensive structures, not against invaders from the sea, but against neighbors. Your world is turning inward, and it is turning ugly. Then comes the first real violence. Not a fistfight between two angry men, but an organized raid. One night, you are woken by shouts and the glow of fire. A group of men from a rival clan, their faces streaked with charcoal, has descended on your village. They are not here to talk. They are here to take. They ransack the stone enclosures where you store your sweet potatoes. They break into the fortified chicken coops. It's a chaotic, desperate, and terrifying scramble. People are hurt. Not just their bodies, but their sense of safety, their belief in the order of the world. The raid is a profound violation. For centuries, the ultimate crime was blasphemy against the ancestors. Now, the ultimate crime is theft, and the response is swift and brutal. Your clan's able-bodied men, who once spent their days carving or transporting moai, now spend their time sharpening obsidian flakes into something new. Not tools, but weapons, spear points, sharp-edged clubs called Paenga. The idle hands of the unemployed statue makers have found a new, dark purpose. Historians debate fiercely about the scale and nature of this conflict. Some envision a full-blown civil war, an island-wide bloodbath with organized armies and pitched battles, the period they call the Moai, the statue-toppling era. Others argue for a more low-grade, endemic state of warfare, a constant cycle of raids and reprisals, clan against clan, family against family, more like a long, violent breakdown of society than a formal war. You don't know the academic terms. You just know the feeling. You don't trust your neighbors anymore. You look at the men from the next village not as fellow Rapa Nui, but as a threat. The island, which once felt like a large, extended family, now feels like a prison yard full of warring gangs. You look at the great Moai of your clan, still standing its silent watch. Its serene, authoritative expression seems like a mockery now. It was supposed to guarantee peace and prosperity, but it stands there, powerless, as its children sharpen blades to use against each other. Its mana has failed completely. The whispers of conflict have become the shouts of war, and you know, with a chilling certainty, that this is only the beginning. The worst is yet to come. The world is broken. The old ways have failed. The Moai stand silent, their promises of prosperity turning to dust along with the soil. When the old gods stop answering your prayers, you have two choices: you can descend into chaos, or you can find new gods. Desperate, clinging to the edge of survival, your people invent a new religion, a new obsession born directly from the ashes of the old one. This is the age of the Birdman. The focus of your spiritual world shifts from the land to the sky, and from the stoic, unmoving ancestors to the one creature that symbolizes freedom and the world beyond your barren shores. The Sooty turns. or Manutara. These seabirds, which spend most of their lives on the open ocean, return once a year to nest on 3 small, rocky islets just off the southwestern tip of your island. Their arrival is a sign of renewal, a connection to the vibrant, living world you have lost. You make your way to the village of Orongo, perched precariously on the narrow ridge of the Rano volcano, between the deep, fresh water of the crater lake on one side and a sheer, 1,000-foot drop to the crashing sea on the other. This is the new ceremonial center of the island. It's a strange, almost paranoid village of low, stone houses built partially underground, their entrances like burrows. It feels like a place for hiding, not living. Here, once a year, the new ritual unfolds. The most powerful clans or what's left of them gather. They are no longer competing to build the biggest statue. They are competing for the ultimate prize, the first sooty turns egg of the season. Each clan chief selects a champion, a warrior of great strength and bravery called a hapu. These men are not just athletes. They are your hope, your avatars in a deadly game. You watch from the cliffs of Orongo as the champions begin their descent. It's a terrifying spectacle. They have to scramble down the sheer, crumbling cliff face of the volcano, a 1,000-foot drop where one loose rock means certain death. They hit the water, where the sharks that patrol the channel between the island and the islets are a constant threat. Then they must swim through the violent surf to the largest of the 3 rocky stacks, a jagged, inhospitable place called Moai. Once on the islet, the champions wait. They live in small caves, surviving on provisions they brought with them. They wait for days, sometimes weeks, for the flocks of sooty terns to arrive and lay their eggs. This period waiting is as much a part of the competition as the race itself. It's a test of patience and endurance. Then, the cry goes up. A champion finds the first egg. He places it carefully in a small reed basket tied to his forehead. Then now, the race is on in reverse. He must swim back through the shark-infested waters, the precious egg his only concern. Then he must climb the 1,000-foot cliff face again, a feat of unbelievable strength and nerve. The first champion to reach the top of the cliff at Orongo and present the unbroken egg to his chief becomes a living god. He is shaved, painted, and secluded for a year, his every need tended to. But it is his chief, his patron, who reaps the real reward. For 1 year, that chief becomes the Tongata Monu, the Birdman. He becomes the sacred leader of the entire island. His clan controls what little is left of the island's resources. His word is law. He holds the power of life and death. This whole cult is a source of fascination and debate for future historians. What does it all mean? Some see it as a desperate attempt to find a new source of mana, a new way to re-establish order in a chaotic world. The competition, however violent and risky, was a way to channel the inter-clan aggression into a single, ritualized event. Better to risk a few warriors than to have all-out war. Others see it as the final, cynical power grab by the warrior class, the Matatue, who had risen to prominence in the chaos. They created a new religion that put physical strength and ruthless competition above all else. You look at the new Birdman. His face is impassive, but his eyes hold the terrifying certainty of absolute power. This is not the gentle, protective power of the old ancestor cult. This is a brutal, winner-take-all power, born of desperation. The prize is not prosperity for all. It's survival for the victorious few. You have replaced your silent stone gods with a fragile egg and a leader who rules for just 1 year, until the whole bloody contest begins again. This is the new organizing principle of your society, a yearly gamble for dictatorship, played out on the edge of a cliff. The reign of the Birdman brings a new, fragile kind of order to the island, but it's an order based on fear, not faith. The annual competition at Orongo provides a single focal point for the island's warring factions, but it doesn't erase the deep-seated mistrust and the daily struggle for survival. The era of building great, public monuments to the sky is over. The new era is one of hiding, of burrowing into the earth itself. Your daily life is no longer lived out in the open. The airy, elegant Rapa Nui, the boat-shaped houses that once dotted the coastline, are now dangerous. They are too visible, too easy to attack and burn. You and your family, like so many others, have abandoned your ancestral home for a new kind of shelter, one that offers not comfort, but concealment. You now live in a cave. The island's volcanic geology has blessed it with a vast network of lava tubes, long subterranean tunnels formed by ancient lava flows. For centuries, these caves were used for temporary shelter, for burials, or for ceremonial purposes. Now, they have become permanent homes. You find a suitable cave entrance, often just a small, discreet hole in the ground, and you make it your own. Life underground is a grim existence. The air is damp, cool, and perpetually smells of earth and mold. There is no sunlight. Your world is lit by the flickering, smoky flames of small fires fueled by grass and shrubs, the only fuel you have left. The smoke stings your eyes and coats the cave ceiling with a greasy black soot. You sleep on reed mats laid directly on the damp ground. To make your cave more defensible, you modify the entrance. You roll large stones into place, creating a narrow, fortified crawl space. To get into your own home, you have to get on your hands and knees and wriggle through a small opening that could be easily defended by a single person with a spear. Some families create small ambush pits just inside the entrance. Your home is no longer a place of welcome. It is a fortress. You spend as little time as possible in the cave. The daylight hours are for scavenging. You tend to your small, hidden garden plot, nestled in a gully or a natural depression, hopefully out of sight of your neighbors. You scour the coastline for anything edible. But at night, or at the first sign of danger, you retreat back to the safety of the dark. This is the age of the cave dweller, and it's a chapter of your history that archaeologists find both fascinating and heartbreaking. They explore these cave systems, their flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. They see the soot still blackening the ceilings after centuries. They find the remains of ancient cooking fires. They find caches of stone tools and obsidian spear points, hidden away for safekeeping. And sometimes, on the walls of these caves, they find art. In the flickering firelight, you and your family would paint. Using pigments made from red and white earth, you would cover the rock walls with images from your broken world. You paint pictures of the sooty terns, the sacred bird of your new religion. You paint canoes, not the great voyaging canoes of your ancestors, but the small, pathetic crafts of your present, a memory and a prayer painted on the wall of your tomb-like home. You paint strange, hybrid creatures, half human, half bird, reflecting the new obsessions of your culture. What was this art for? Was it simply decoration, a way to bring a little bit of life to these dark, damp spaces? Was it religious, an attempt to summon the power of the Birdman cult into your own home? Or was it, as some scholars suggest, a form of escapism, a way of dreaming of a world of flight and freedom when your own world had become a subterranean prison? The debate over the meaning of this cave art continues, another puzzle from your people's darkest hours. You lie on your mat in the darkness of the cave, listening to the drip of water from the ceiling. You can hear the muffled sounds of your family breathing around you. You are safe, for now, but it's a miserable safety. You have gone from being the proud builders of skyscraping monuments to a race of troglodytes, hiding from each other in the bowels of the earth. You look at the painted birds on the ceiling, their wings spread as if in flight, and you wonder if your people will ever see the open sky with confidence again. The fear that drove you into the caves eventually boils over into open rage. The fragile order imposed by the Birdman cult can't contain the bitterness and hatred that have been simmering for generations. The raids for food and the skirmishes at clan boundaries escalate into a new, terrible phase of the conflict. This is the time you have dreaded, the time your elders whispered about with fear. This is the Hare Moai, The toppling of the statues. It begins as an ultimate act of defiance and desecration. A warrior from a rival clan, his heart full of the rage of a starving man, looks at the great Moai of your ancestors. He doesn't see a sacred guardian. He sees a symbol of the chiefs who lead them to this ruin, a monument to a lie. He sees the embodiment of his enemy's power, and he decides to kill it. You can't kill a stone giant with a spear, but you can make it fall. The act of toppling a Moai is the mirror image of the act of raising it. It's an act of decreation. A raiding party, under the cover of darkness, swarms your clan's sacred AHU. They don't have the numbers to pull it down with ropes, so they use a more insidious method. They dig. With their hands and sharp sticks, they begin to excavate the earthen stones from in front of the statue's base. They pry away the carefully placed foundation stones that keep it balanced. They work frantically, listening for any sound of alarm from your village. Then, they begin to place logs and rocks under the front of the statue's base, creating a pivot point. With long wooden levers, they pry at the giant's back, pushing it forward. The statue, which has stood for centuries, begins to groan. It tilts, slowly at first, its center of gravity shifting past the point of no return. Then, with a sound like thunder, it falls. The 30-foot, 50-ton ancestor crashes face first into the ground. The impact is so violent it shakes the earth. Sometimes the great head snaps off at the neck. Its proud, red Pukao is dislodged, rolling away like a discarded toy. The giant is dead. Its core lies. The very windows of its soul are smashed against the earth. Its mana is not just gone. It has been ritually murdered. The first time this happens, it sends a shockwave of horror and sacrilege across the entire island. It is the ultimate insult, an attack not just on your clan, but on the very fabric of the cosmos. And your clan's response is inevitable. You will not rest until you have done the same to them. So begins the War of the Statues. Clan against clan, you engage in a systematic, island-wide campaign of destruction. The goal is no longer just to steal food, but to erase your enemy's history, to humiliate their ancestors, to extinguish their spiritual power. The nights are filled with the sound of crashing giants. The sun rises on scenes of devastation, proud AHU platforms desecrated, their guardians lying broken and face down in the dirt. Why face down? This detail is something that fascinates future archaeologists. Almost every single toppled Moai on the island was made to fall forward, to eat the dirt. Was this purely for practical reasons, because it was easier to push them forward? Or was it deeply symbolic, a way of forcing the ancestor to bite the dust, to literally smother its spirit in the soil it had failed to protect? The debate over the precise intentionality of this act continues. For you, it's simple. You want your enemy's god to see nothing but darkness. This period of destruction is the island's absolute nadir. All the creative energy, all the engineering genius, all the communal effort that was once channeled into raising the Moai is now inverted, twisted into a feverish passion for tearing them down. It's a frenzy of self-harm, a civilization consuming its own heart. You walk along the coast, a landscape that was once a proud promenade of stone guardians. Now it is a graveyard. AHU after AHU, the story is the same. Fallen giants, broken crowns, scattered foundation stones. Of the hundreds of Moai that once stood watch over the island's coastline, by the end of this dark age, not a single one will be left standing. You look at the empty pedestals, the broken bodies. The war to topple the statues is almost over, because there are almost no statues left to topple. You have successfully destroyed your own glorious past. The silence that falls over the island now is not the silence of peace. It's the silence of exhaustion, the silence of a people who have nothing left to build and nothing left to break. The war on the ancestors is over, and there are no victors. The island is littered with the corpses of toppled Moai. their proud faces buried in the dirt they failed to protect. The rage has burned itself out, leaving behind only the cold, gray ash of exhaustion. A profound, hollow silence has fallen over your people. You have broken everything there is to break. In this new, quiet world, your needs have become brutally simple. You are cold. You are hungry. The fire in your cave dwelling, your only source of warmth and cooked food, is little more than a pile of smoldering grasses that give off more smoke than heat. You need wood. Real wood. A thought that was once as simple as breathing has become a desperate quest. You and a few others from your clan set out. You are not looking for a massive trunk to build a canoe or a lever to move a god. You are looking for anything. A dead branch, a forgotten stump, a shrub thick enough to be worth the effort of cutting. You walk through a landscape that is utterly naked. The wind, no longer broken by any forest, is a physical presence, a constant bully that pushes against you and steals the warmth from your body. The sun beats down on the unprotected soil. In the distance, you see the barren, rounded hills, their outlines stark against the empty sky. Your island looks like a skull. You search for days. You explore the hidden gullies, the sheltered inner slopes of the volcanoes, the places where a tree might have made its last stand. You find nothing. The Toromiro trees are gone. Their tops, gnarled wood having been prized for carving in tools. The howhell shrubs, once plentiful, have been stripped to near extinction for their fibrous bark to make rope. All that is left is grass and ferns. And then, one afternoon, in a small, sheltered crater on the far side of the island, you see it. It's alone. A single, solitary palm tree. It's not one of the majestic giants from the stories of your ancestors. This one is a pathetic survivor. It's stunted, twisted, its trunk scarred by storms, its crown of fronds thin and dragged. It looks less like a tree and more like a monument to everything you have lost. It is the last one, the very last Rapa Nui palm on the entire island. You and your companions stop. No one speaks. You all understand the significance of this moment. This isn't just fuel. This is a ghost. This is the final, living link to the Golden Age, to the time of the great canoes, to the world of abundance. This tree is your history. For a long moment, you hesitate. To cut it down feels like a different kind of sacrilege, a final, irreversible admission of failure. But the wind is cold. Your children's faces, thin and hungry, flesh in your mind. The future is a fantasy. Survival is the only reality. With a weary nod from your leader, one of you steps forward. He raises his stone axe. The sound of the blade hitting the trunk is shockingly loud in the silent landscape. It's not the confident thwack of an axe on a healthy tree. It's a dull, hollow thud. It sounds like a heart beating in an empty room. You take turns, chipping away at the base. The work is slow, joyless. Finally, with a drag crackle, the last palm tree on Easter Island leans, picks up a little speed, and falls to the ground. There is no great crash. Its fall is small, pathetic, swallowed by the immense, indifferent silence of the barren land. It just ends. This moment, the felling of the last tree, is the symbolic endpoint of your civilization's long, slow-motion suicide. Future scientists, studying the pollen grains in your crater lakes, will argue for centuries about when, exactly, it happened. Was it in the 1400 seconds? The 1600 seconds? Did it happen before the worst of the wars, sparking the final conflict? Or was it the final, sad punctuation mark after the destruction was already complete? For you, the debate is meaningless. You are holding the evidence in your hands. You methodically strip the tree. The trunk will be used for firewood. The precious fronds are gathered for weaving or patching a leaking roof. Even the small cluster of nuts at its crown is taken, a rare delicacy. As you work, You understand the full cascade of what has just been extinguished. The dream of ever building another ocean-going canoe is now officially dead. The best source of fiber for strong rope is gone. The last shady spot on the island has vanished. You carry the pieces of the lost tree back to your cave. That night, for the first time in a long time, you have a proper fire. It burns brightly, casting dancing shadows on the cave walls. It provides a fleeting, physical warmth, but as you stare into the flames, you feel a coldness that has nothing to do with the temperature. It's the cold of absolute finality. You are no longer just isolated. You are sealed. You are adrift on a rock, in the middle of an ocean, and now you know, with chilling certainty, that you are never getting off. Life is settled into a new, grim rhythm. The great passions are spent. The wars are over. The statues are down. Your world is small now, defined by the path from your cave to your garden plot, from your garden plot to the rocky shore. The horizon is just the place where the sky meets the water, the edge of everything. Nothing has ever come from there. Nothing ever will. Then one day, something does. It's seen first by a child, scrambling on the rocks. He points, his voice a confused squeak. You and the others look up from your work, shading your eyes against the glare. And you see it. It's a smudge on the horizon, like the one your ancestors saw 1,000 years ago. But this is different. It's not a low, dark line of land. It's tall. It grows, impossibly, as it gets closer. It resolves into a shape so alien it defies all your concepts. It's a floating island, but it's not made of earth and rock. It's made of wood, like a canoe, but it is larger than any village. It is a mountain of wood that moves on the water. From this mountain grow 3 towering, leafless trees, and from their branches hang huge, white sheets, like enormous pieces of toppled that catch the wind. The thing moves without paddles, without effort, a silent, monstrous creature gliding across the surface of the ocean. There, a feeling you thought you had exhausted returns with a fresh, cold trickle. Is this a god? A demon? A monster from the deep? People retreat to the entrances of their caves, peering out at the impossible apparition. There is no one left on the island who can tell you what this is. The stories of the great voyaging canoes of your ancestors are just that, stories. No living person has seen anything bigger than the leaky, patchwork boats you use to fish along the coast. The floating island comes to a stop in the bay, and the white sheets are folded away by tiny figures moving in its high branches. Then, something even stranger happens. It gives birth. A smaller creature, like a wooden water bug, detaches from its side and begins to paddle towards your shore. As it gets closer, you see the beings inside it. They are not people. Not as you know people. Their skin is a ghastly, pale white, like the underbelly of a dead fish. Some have hair growing all over the bottom of their faces, thick and yellow like dried grass. They are wrapped in strange, colorful skins, blues and reds and blacks that hide the shape of their bodies. They are clumsy and awkward. They land on your beach, and you get your first good look. They are tall, but they move stiffly. They carry sticks in their hands, some of which gleam with a light like a polished shell. They make sounds at each other, but it's not language. It's a collection of harsh, meaningless noises. Cautiously, your clan leader, followed by a few others, emerges from hiding. You are unarmed. Your obsidian spears are for fighting other islanders, not for whatever these things are. You have nothing to offer them. Your wealth is measured in sweet potatoes, and you don't have enough for yourselves. The pale beings seem just as curious about you. They stare at your tattoos, your elongated earlobes. They point at the toppled Moai, lying face down in the grass, and make their strange noises at each other, a sound of what might be amazement. One of them points a long, wooden stick at a seabird on a rock. There is a deafening crack of thunder, a puff of smoke, and the bird dissolves into a cloud of feathers. A new kind of fear grips you. These are not just beings. They are beings who can command thunder and lightning. This is your first encounter with Europeans. It is Easter Sunday, Yochi Hare, and the floating island is the ship of a Dutch explorer named Jacob Brogveen. He is the one who will give your home its Fran name, Easter Island, for the day he found you. His logbooks will record his utter bewilderment. He sees all and of impoverished, naked people living in wretched hovels, yet they live amidst the ruins of a civilization so advanced it could raise stone giants that leave him speechless with awe. How could such a people create such wonders? He has no answer. The interaction is a study in mutual confusion. You offer them a few chickens, your most valuable possession. They seem unimpressed. They have objects of baffling wonder hard, clear stones that you can see through glass, and small, heavy discs of a yellow material you have never seen gold. And here's a quirky detail Rogveen noted to our thieves. Anything left in it into the hat, a tool, a piece of cloth, is immediately snatched up and spirited away. It's not malice. It's that the concept of ownership makes no sense in the face of such impossible, alien wealth. The interpretation of this first contact is still debated by historians. Was Rogveen seeing the last gasps of a dying culture, with the population already decimated by the civil wars? Or was your society in a state of grim stability, with the Birdman cult still in full force? And did the arrival of these outsiders and their unknown diseases trigger the final, catastrophic population crash? The written accounts are brief and contradictory, leaving a gap in your story that scholars are still trying to fill. After a few days of this strange, tense dance, the pale beans get back in their water bug, return to their floating mountain, and sail away, disappearing over the horizon as mysteriously as they arrive. They leave you with a few new objects, a lot of new fears, and one world-shattering piece of knowledge. You are not alone. The emptiness beyond the horizon is not empty. There is another world out there. A world of thundersticks and pale, hairy men and floating mountains. And you have no idea if, or when, it will be back. The Dutch ship is gone, but it leaves a ghost in its wake. The memory of the floating mountain and the pale men with their thundersticks haunts your imagination. For a generation, life returns to its familiar, grim pattern. The Birdman competition continues at Orango. The clans skirmish, and you scavenge for food. But now, you occasionally look to the horizon with a new feeling, a mixture of fear and a strange, faint hope. Then they come again. This time, the ships are Spanish. A few decades later, they are French, then British, captained by the famous explorer James Cook. Each visit is brief, a fleeting encounter between two worlds that can't comprehend each other. These new visitors are different from the first. They are more systematic. They are not just looking, they are measuring, mapping, and asking questions. A young man from your clan, brave or foolish enough to approach the new arrivals, finds himself sitting on the sand trying to communicate with one of them. The visitor, a ship's officer with a notebook, points to the toppled Moai, then to the empty quarry at Rano Raraku, and then back to you. His expression is one of pure, unadulterated confusion. His gestures are clear, even if his words are noise. He is asking the one question that will define your island for the rest of time: how? And more importantly, why? How do you explain it? How do you tell the story of your world to someone who has no context for it? You don't have a written language. Your history is a living thing, a chain of oral traditions, chants, and memories passed from one generation to the next. But that chain has been broken. The elders who knew the full, detailed stories of the Golden Age, the great chiefs, and the reasons for building the Moai are long dead. The wars and the chaos have burned down your library of memory. All you have are fragments, broken pieces of the story. So you do your best. You use your hands. You point to the sky, to the heavens, and then to the stone faces in the dirt. You are trying to explain that they were for the ancestors, for the gods. You make a rocking motion with your hands, trying to describe how the statues walked. You make a chopping motion, then point to the barren hills, trying to explain the loss of the forest. You draw lines in the sand, representing the different clans, and then you slam your fists together. Ugh. The visitor scribbles furiously in his notebook, but you can see the incompression error in his eyes. He is trying to fit your story into his world, a world of kings and empires, unwritten histories, and it doesn't fit. Your explanation, filtered through his lens, will be recorded as a vague, confusing myth. The visiting Captain Cook will write in his journal that he can hardly conceive how these islanders, wholly unacquainted with any mechanical power, could raise such stupendous figures. He saw the effect, but the cause was a complete mystery. And here's a sad, ironic detail. Some of these early visitors brought with them artists. These men would sit on the beach and sketch. They drew the landscapes, the toppled statues, and portraits of your people. For the first time, your world is being recorded with an outsider's precision. But by the time they arrive to draw it, the golden age is long gone. They are documenting the ashes, not the fire. The images they take back to Europe will be of a ruined, desolate place inhabited by a primitive people, cementing the image of your island as a place of inexplicable mystery. The exact nature of the history you conveyed is, of course, a major point of contention for modern scholars. Did your ancestors tell these explorers the ecocide story, a clear narrative of felling the forests to move the statues, leading to starvation and war? Or is that narrative a modern interpretation, a projection of our own environmental anxieties onto your past? Some historians argue that the islanders' accounts were more complex, blaming the downfall on tribal warfare, spiritual decay, or other factors, and that the deforestation story was oversimplified by the Europeans. What you really told them is lost, translated and reinterpreted into a new myth. As the ships sail away, you are left with a profound sense of frustration. You have tried to tell your story, to explain who you are, but you can't. You have become a curiosity, a living ruin. Your past is no longer your own. It has become a riddle for outsiders to solve. You look at the fallen giants, and for the first time, you feel a kinship with them. They are silent, broken, their stories buried within. And like them, you are becoming a relic in your own home, your voice a faint whisper that no one can quite understand. The occasional visits from the pale sky does become a strange but semi-regular feature of your life. They bring wondrous things and terrible new sicknesses that sweep through your population, killing more people than any war. But the worst is yet to come. In the mid-19th century, a new kind of ship arrives. These aren't explorers. They are predators. They are slave raiders from Peru. In a series of devastating raids, they kidnap nearly half of your remaining population, including the last king, the last elders who knew the old chants, and the last experts in your unique, partially developed script called Rano Raraku. They are taken to work and die in the guano mines of Peru. The heart of your culture, its living library of memory, is ripped out and destroyed in one fell swoop. A few survivors eventually make it back, but they bring smallpox with them, which kills most of those who were left. By the 1872, little more than 100 of your people remain on the island. You have hit rock bottom. It is into this near-total void that a new kind of outsider arrives. Not a sailor or a slaver, but an archaeologist. Then another. Then a whole expedition. These are people armed not with thunder sticks, but with shovels, trowels, and measuring tapes. They have come to solve the riddle of your past, to speak for the silent stones because you no longer can. The era of archaeology begins. You watch, a small, forgotten remnant of a once great people, as these newcomers begin to dig. They treat your home like a giant crime scene. They excavate the bases of the toppled Moai. They dig trenches in your old village sites. They sift through your ancestors' garbage heaps, the middens, with painstaking care, analyzing every tiny fish bone and rat bone. The early archaeologists are full of bold, often wildly incorrect theories. Some, unable to believe your ancestors could have achieved such feats, insist that a lost white race, or even South Americans, must have been responsible for the statues. But as the 20th century progresses, the science becomes more rigorous. They bring in new techniques you couldn't possibly imagine. They use radioabracon dating on charcoal from ancient cooking fires to build a timeline of your history. They can pinpoint the century, sometimes even the decade, when a particular village was thriving. This is how they date the Golden Age and the subsequent period of decline. They bring in paleobotanists. Scientists take core samples from the mud at the bottom of the Greater Lakes. In these columns of mud, trapped layer by layer, is the history of the island's plant life, written in microscopic grains of pollen. They are the ones who discover the ghost of the great palm forest. They can literally see its pollen dominate the record for centuries, then watch it dwindle and vanish, replaced by the pollen of grass. It is the single most powerful piece of evidence for the deforestation story. They study the human remains, the IWI, of your ancestors. From the bones, they can learn about the diet, the diseases, the average lifespan of your people. They see the evidence of nutritional stress in the later periods, confirming the stories of starvation. And here's a quirky detail from this era of discovery: the roadside Moai. The archaeologists mapping the island found that many of the Moai that fell while being transported from the quarry were not just randomly scattered. They seemed to fall in a pattern, usually face down a leftward slope. This strange detail helped fuel the walking theory of transport. Experimental archaeologists, like the Norwegian explorers or Hare and later others, would even try to replicate the process, building their own replicas and trying to move them with ropes and manpower, proving that it was, in fact, possible. The debate among these scientists is fierce, a new kind of intellectual tribal warfare fought in academic journals. Was the collapse caused by ecocide, a self-inflicted environmental disaster as championed by writers like Jared Diamond? Or was it genocide, with the arrival of Europeans and their diseases being the true culprit that pushed a struggling but resilient culture over the edge? This ecocide versus genocide debate is the central argument that rages over your legacy. You, one of the last true Rapa Nui, watch all this with a mixture of awe and detachment. These outsiders are piecing together a version of your history. It's a scientific story, made of data points and soil samples and carbon dates. They are rediscovering facts that were once your living reality. They are writing a new book about your past, a book you can't tread, to answer a question they brought with them. And as you watch them meticulously reassemble the skeleton of your world, you can't help but wonder if they will ever be able to understand its soul. The archaeologists, with their pollen cores and carbon dates, have painted a powerful and persuasive picture. It's a story of a reckless, obsessive people who chop down their entire forest to build bigger and bigger statues, leading directly to soil erosion, starvation, Moai, and the collapse of their civilization. It's the ecocide theory. It's clean, it's dramatic, and it has become the dominant narrative about your life, a cautionary tale told around the world. But is it the whole truth? As you stand amidst the scientific certainty, you can hear the whispers of other possibilities, the nagging questions that complicate the simple, tragic story. These are the arguments that still echo in the halls of academia, the ongoing debate that proves your story is not yet a closed case. What about the rats? You remember them well. The Teaiori, the Polynesian rat that arrived as a stowaway on your ancestors' first canoes. With no natural predators on the island, no snakes, no birds of prey, their population exploded. You see them everywhere, a scurrying, furry carpet. They were a pest, but also a food source. But what if they were something more? What if they were the true villains of the deforestation story? Modern ecologists have pointed out that a single pair of rats can produce thousands of offspring in just a few years. An island teeming with millions of rats would have been an ecological nightmare. And what is a rat's favorite food? Seeds. Palm nuts. They would have swarmed the forest floor, devouring every single nut before it had a chance to germinate. So, while your people were cutting down the adult trees for canoes and statue transport, the rats were ensuring that no new trees could ever grow. This theory doesn't entirely absolve your people of responsibility, but it changes the narrative. The deforestation was just an act of reckless consumption. It was a slow, creeping plague that prevented regeneration. Was the collapse a suicide, or was it a death by 1,000 tiny bites? The rat POC theory, as some cheekily call it, is a major point of contention. The role of the rat as a primary driver, or just a contributing factor, is still fiercely debated. Then there's the question of disease. The story of ecocide places the collapse before the Europeans arrived. But what if the worst of it happened after? The first visitors in the 18th century reported a population that was struggling. Yes, but still numbered in the thousands. They saw a functioning, violent society with the Birdman cult in full swing. It was only after the sustained contact in the 19th century, with the slavers and whalers bringing waves of smallpox, tuberculosis, and syphilis, that your population crashed down to a mere 100 souls. This is the genocide argument. It suggests your society, while facing severe environmental challenges, was adapting. You had shifted to a new religion. You were expert stone gardeners. You were survivors. You were not a failed state on the brink of extinction. You were a resilient people pushed over the edge by forces you couldn't possibly fight microbes. Scholars arguing this point suggest that the story of self-destruction is a way for the colonial world to absolve itself of its own role in your demise. It's easier to say they did it to themselves than to admit we killed them. And here's a curious piece of evidence that complicates the simple collapse narrative of the obsidian trade. Archaeologists have analyzed the chemical fingerprints of the obsidian tools found all over the island. They found that even during the supposed dark age of chaos and warfare, high-quality obsidian from a single quarry source was still being traded peacefully and efficiently across the entire island, right up until the time of European contact. This suggests that some level of complex social and economic cooperation continued even while clans were toppling each other's statues. The society was wounded, broken in some ways, but it hadn't completely disintegrated into a war of all against all. So what is the truth? Was it a self-inflicted ecocide? A death by 1,000,000 rats? A genocide delivered by foreign diseases? The reality, as historians are increasingly beginning to accept, is likely a messy, complicated all of the above. Your civilization wasn't killed by a single bullet. It was a perfect storm, a cascade of overlapping disasters. Your own overexploitation of resources weakened you. The rat plague crippled your forest's ability to recover. And then the final, fatal blow was delivered by the diseases of an outside world you never knew existed. The simple, clean story is more dramatic, but the messy, complicated story is probably closer to the truth. And it is in that messy truth that the real, more nuanced lesson of your life can be found. You stand on the shoreline of your small, denuded island, looking out at the vast, indifferent ocean. Behind you lie the fallen giants, the empty caves, the ghosts of a forest. Your story, in all its messy, debated complexity, feels like a private tragedy, a cautionary tale for a forgotten people on a lonely rock. But now, let's pull the camera back, way back, so far back that your island shrinks until it is just a tiny, green and brown dot in a sea of brilliant blue. Keep pulling back, past the moon, until you see the whole of the earth floating in the blackness of space. It's a beautiful, swirling marble of blue, white, and green. A pale blue dot, as a future astronomer will call it. And from this vantage point, you suddenly see your story in a terrifying new light. Your island was just an island. It was a planet in miniature. Think about it. You lived on a speck of land, completely isolated, with a finite set of resources. The trees, the soil, the birds, the fresh water, that was all you had. There was no way to throw things. There was no other place to go for more, what? Once you used it up, it was gone. For your people, the edges of the island were the edges of the world. There was no escape. Now, look at the Earth again. It too is an island. It's a magnificent, sprawling island, to be sure, but it is an island nonetheless, floating in the vast, sterile ocean of space. The resources we have here, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the forests, the fossil fuels are all we have. There is no other place to go. We are all living on our own version of Rapa Nui. Your story is a parable, a lesson written in stone and pollen that you lived and died so that a future world might learn. Your society was driven by a belief system, a combination of religious fervor and political competition that demanded ever-increasing consumption of your natural resources. The chiefs and the Carvers who called for bigger and bigger Moai were not evil. They probably believed they were doing what was best for their people, securing their prosperity, honoring their gods. They just cowed and see the long-term consequences of their actions. They suffered from a collective myopia, unable to see that the path to glory was also the path to ruin. Does that sound familiar? Our modern world is also driven by a belief system of faith in perpetual growth, in consumerism, in the idea that a healthy economy is one that constantly expands. We are all, in our own way, competing to build bigger statues, bigger economies, bigger corporations, bigger houses, faster cars, and to do it, we are consuming the finite resources of our planet at an alarming rate. We are clearing our forests, eroding our soil, polluting our oceans, changing our climate. We are all living on Easter Island. We just haven't run out of trees yet. The debate about what ultimately caused your collapse ecocide, rats, or disease doesn't change the power of the metaphor. In fact, it makes it stronger. It shows that societies are fragile ecosystems. They can be destabilized by internal pressures, like resource depletion and social strife, which then makes them fatally vulnerable to external shocks. Like an invasive species, your rats, or a new pandemic, are potential future. One of the most haunting details of your story is the blindness of the last generation. The person who chopped down the very last palm tree was the monster. They were probably just a cold, hungry parent trying to feed their family for one more night. They were making a rational, short-term decision, completely oblivious to the monumental, irreversible nature of their act. They were a victim of a system that had already failed, just acting out its final, tragic scene. Your story floats out from your little island and becomes a question for all of humanity. Are we any different? Can we see the long-term consequences of our actions? Can we learn to manage our resources, to curb our consumption, to live within the boundaries of our own island home before we, too, find ourselves trying to survive in a world we haven't made? Your silent, staring Moai become the eyes of history, watching us. They stand as a permanent, powerful warning. Your tragedy was not that you were foolish or primitive. Your tragedy was that you were human. And your story holds up a mirror to us all, asking a single, terrifying question: are you listening? The fever dream of the past begins to fade. The smell of soot and fear, the desperate cries of the Birdman competition, the thunder of falling giants, they all recede, leaving you standing under a vast, clear blue sky. The wind is still here, a constant presence, but it feels different now. It feels clean. You are back in the present day. The island you stand on is not the lush paradise your ancestors first discovered, nor is it the barren wasteland you witnessed at its lowest point. It is a world remade. It is a rolling landscape of green grass, scarred here and there by the dark volcanic rock. And on the horizon, silhouetted against the sea, something impossible has happened. The giants are standing again. You make your way to the southeastern coast, to a place called Erosion, and there, it takes your breath away. Lined up on a massive stone platform, their backs to the sea, are 15 Moai. 15, standing shoulder to shoulder, a silent, stoic army of ancestors, resurrected and restored to their former glory. This is not the work of ancient mana. This is the work of modern science and a renewed sense of cultural pride. In the 20th century, after its tsunami had scattered them even further, a team of archaeologists and engineers, working with the modern Rapa Nui people, used massive cranes to lift these giants and place them back on their AHU. It was a new kind of ceremony, a fusion of science and heritage, raising the ancestors with steel cables instead of log levers. You look at their faces, carved so long ago, now staring out over a world of tour buses and camera-clicking visitors. The Moai are no longer just guardians for a single clan. They are a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the shared heritage of all humanity. They have a new purpose to be silent witnesses, to tell their story to anyone who will listen. But this rebirth is not without its own modern complexities. Not all the children have come home. You think of a particularly famous Moai, one of the few carved from hard basalt. His name is Hoa Naya, which means stolen or hidden friend. He was taken from the island in 1868 by a British ship and given to Queen Victoria. Today, he stands not under the open sky of his homeland, but in the enclosed hall of the British Museum in London. The Rapa Nui people have formally requested his return, to bring his spirit home. This debate over repatriation is a stark reminder that the story of the Moai is not over. They are not just historical artifacts. They are part of a living culture, and they are caught in the complex currents of a post-colonial world. And this leads to the island's great modern debate, a conflict fought not with obsidian spears but with zoning laws and development plans. How do you protect this fragile, open-air museum while also supporting a modern community that relies on tourism? Every year, tens of thousands of people come to see the silent statues. They bring much-needed income, but they also bring their footsteps, which erode the delicate soil around the sites. Their demand for hotels and restaurants puts a strain on the island's limited water supply. The central conflict of your past, the tension between a society's ambitions and its environment's limits, is playing out all over again, this time with Wi-Fi and rental cars. You stand before the 15 silent watchers of Tongariki as the sun begins to set. Their long shadows stretch across the grass. They are a profound paradox. They are symbols of a spectacular collapse, a warning sent across the centuries. But they are also symbols of incredible resilience. They are standing again. The Rapa Nui people, whose population was reduced to just over 100, have survived and are reclaiming their story. The statues that were once violently toppled in an act of rage are now being lovingly restored in an act of remembrance. They are a warning, yes, but they are also a promise that even after the darkest night, it is possible to stand up again and face the dawn.